I love it.
Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are glad you are here, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I'm pleased to present two people who are hugely successful in their lanes of the music business and in life. And they have done it by using their immense talents and by proving that nice guys do, in fact, finish first. I promise you will leave today thinking, wow, who knew? And you'll also leave all smarter and more inspired than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the music industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and make some new ones, and ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the session. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors for without their support. Whoops. Sorry about that. I hit the wrong button.
I see them.
Well, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to carry on. I want to thank our program sponsors for without their support, we could not keep this series free. I want to thank First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, MedJet, Tennessee Brew Works, Project Music, and Better Than Booze. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome Sam Hollander. As one of the most renowned songwriters and producers in the game, Sam Hollander has a multi-platinum success writing and producing for the likes of Panic at the Disco, One Direction, Def Leppard, Blink-182, Weezer, Katy Perry, Train, Fitz and the Tantrums, Carole King, Ringo Starr, and many others. To date, he's achieved 22 U.S. top 40 hits, as well as 10 number ones, 11 top fives, and 89 top 10 chart positions globally. In 2019, he held the number one position on the Billboard Rock Songwriters chart for 9 weeks, a year-end record. Sam has been chosen to be on Variety's Hitmakers list, as well as being named Rolling Stone's Hot List Producer of the Year in 2008. And joining Sam as today's featured guest is Kevin Griffin. Kevin is an award-winning songwriter, producer, and performer whose songs have sold in excess of 80 million copies and has been streamed over 1 billion times. That's a billion with a B. He is best known as the singer and founding member of the platinum-selling rock band Better Than Ezra. He's written numerous number ones and had songs performed by artists such as Taylor Swift, Train, Sugarland, Dierks Bentley, Christina Perri, Hunter Hayes, James Blunt, and many more. He's the co-founder and partner in the Pilgrimage Music and Cultural Festival located in Franklin, Tennessee, and has served as a writer in residence at the NYU Clive Davis School of Music. In the spring of 2023, Kevin released his debut book called The Greatest Song, Spark Creativity, Ignite Your Career, and Transform Your Life, which reached top-selling lists for both hard copy and audiobooks. Kevin lectures internationally on creativity to groups and companies ranging from Live Nation, Google, Spotify, Disney, to Nike, YPO, WPO, and Salesforce. Ladies and gentlemen, it is such an honor to have these two rock stars with us. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Tom. I'm kind of intimidated by the accolades, Sam. We kind of packed them too thick.
It's just, we're both content providers. We're like early Netscape Navigator. We just have so much content emanating from our pores. What's up, everybody out there? So say hello.
So great to see you. Pete Griffin. I see so many. Susan.
Susan Stewart, I love you. What's up? Rob Schneck, my boy Rob Schneck, Steve O'Brien, a lot of homies in the house.
Are you out on the porch?
I want to say something very quickly for anybody know if anybody from Westchester County is on this little Zoom chat today, but the one thing I would say is, you know, my dad taught me something, Kevin, when I was a kid. He said to me, you know what, like, don't boo at a sports event, right? Don't boo. Like, don't boo. Don't be that guy. You know what? Would you want them booing outside the recording studio when you write a terrible song, right? So my dad was a very, you know, he was a perceptive fella. Now, I will tell you something. Matt Hammer on News 12 weather here in Westchester said today that there would be absolutely just little bouts of drizzle. It has been a fucking monsoon, and I just got drenched in it. And so what I want to say is I am not going to boo Matt Hammer News 12, but if anybody else wants to take that mantle,
Boo. Though you know, I have on occasions in Nashville at some writer rooms booed outside other writer rooms before, just to fuck with them.
that's good.
Like at the firehouse at Sony ATV. But just good natured ribbing. When was the last time? So Sam, I got to say one thing real quick. Tom was very kind to mention my book that came out in April, but Sam Hollander has a bestseller. It's called 20.
You know what? I think Tom was intimidated by my book, and it was, you know, it was hard to mention it because, you know, it was such a looming weird. It was just like this weird catastrophic thing hanging on both of our shoulders. But yes, I did write a book. We had books back to back, and the last time I saw you, I believe, was when we were at Rough Trade in New York City together, discussing your book again. And
we started off at Parnassus in Nashville, but this whole I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine book thing started at Electric Jane in Nashville.
That's what besties do. That's what besties do, right, KG? That's what besties do for each other.
I got to give props to Sam Hollander, and Tom did a great job, you know, telling your history. But you're not going to find anybody who navigates the ever-changing Byzantine world of the music industry better than Sam. And he put those experiences down on that book, 21 Hit Wonder. It's really great. It's a memoir, but it's self-help. It's a memoir. It's a snapshot of the record industry, and it's funny, and it's a great read. So,
well, thank you. You know, we both wrote books simultaneously. I adore your book. You know that your book is a little bit more positive and inspirational. Mine is sort of self-deprecating, sad, and inspirational. But they are relatable. We do both come out on the other end. But you know, what a trippy experience, right? Like book tours and stuff like that in the midst of, you know, it was funny. I had a meeting with Ron Perry, who is, I guess, the chairman of Columbia Records, and we were hanging out, and we were talking about the state of the music industry in 2023. And you know, we both agreed in our lifetime, this is the craziest it's ever been. Like, we've been through so many industries and so many waves, but this is really the craziest time ever. And it was such a fascinating time to sort of take a step back, go on the road, actually meet people, shake hands with people, and talk about music and talk about where people are at this moment. Because I think everybody, including ourselves, like, we're all, if anyone tells you they're an expert right now, if everybody tells you they're the smartest guy and people in the room, it's more like the smartest guy in the room, like the Enron way, right? Like, you know, for those, if anyone gets that deep cut reference. But thanks, man. But music industry right now is in such a very strange place, and there are no experts. We all sort of have our own takes. I do navigate, you navigate. We wake up every single day and figure, okay, how do we create art that is going to manifest into something, and you know, how do we get it there? And it is such a colossal mindfuck right now because things are changing so rapidly, and I feel like year by year now it's like a yearly transition of this industry, as opposed to like 5 or 10 year intervals. Every year this thing is just changing. You have TikTok, you have AI, you know, and man, it's a constant learning curve. And I hope that I'm hoping that you know, people are not overwhelmed and not freaked out by it, but it's a great time for opportunity.
It is. You know, it's interesting, you know, Sam and I, you know, we started off at about the same time, you know, and as a songwriter, there was that, if that was your calling, there was that real that real pot of gold. Like if I have some success with some songs, I can really make a career for myself, as evidenced by some of the great writers at the time. And that was true in the 90s with the physical sales of albums and those mechanical royalties you would get. And then radio was huge. Then there was obviously Napster and Sean Fanning. Everybody, we were going to banging the death knell of, the song industry, but songwriters, we were still doing great. Then there was this subscription model, but now in the streaming world, it's the first time that the traditional thing, Sam, if there's songwriters out there, Sam and I, it was every day we would go to we'd go to a songwriting, to this day, we go to songwriting sessions, in New York and Nashville, or would even, go to LA or wherever. And you do it because you believe that you're 50%, or if it's a three-way, right, 33%, it's worth it to be there in that room. Because if you write that hit song, it can change your life. Now you have a real question, is it worth writing the song?
For anybody who's been to LA or been to Nashville and has taken an Uber or a Lyft, at least twice a year, I'll get a driver who's written a hit song, who is driving an Uber or Lyft, and that's how fucked the business is at this moment. And there are positives. Look, TikTok, right? TikTok eradicated gatekeepers. That's a marvelous thing, right? We spent our lives, Kevin and I both came up in an era of standing outside of buildings, handing out demo cassettes. And it's wonderful to think that tonight, if I were young and moderately charming, I could release a song and make a video, and suddenly I could go viral. And yes, the labels would call, but I would also have artistic control over my output, and I would fight to keep it, that didn't exist, it's so that alone is spectacular. The flip side is the numbers, the mass content every single day, everywhere. If it was 100,000 tracks a day 6 months ago on Spotify and streaming services, you have to think what's that going to be in a year with AI? 1 million tracks a day. I mean, and so how do you get your voice heard in this climate? I think it's a time where you just have to assess your goals, reassess sort of why you do this. What you said, Kevin, is exactly right. When we used to do sessions, I used to wake up in the morning and think, okay, there are, let's say I was living in Los Angeles, there are, let's say 300 sessions going on simultaneously right now. And if I write the best song of 300 that given day, it's going to raise its hand, go to radio, and maybe be a hit and maybe change my life, but it doesn't work like that anymore. And we also live in an industry of, I think, 20 different industries, right? You have, I can go see a band play a stadium, an older band who cut one of my songs, and hear my song in a stadium with 70,000 people, and the song might stream 5 million times total. And then I could write a song with a kid with, who made a funny video about, eating pasta with, soda, and it goes viral with our little song in the background, and that could end up with 300 million streams. And it's not about the song, it's more about the content where it's placed. And I don't ever want to sound like the old guy in the room, but that's trippy, man. It's a very different business,
And I talk to people, okay, so what's the solution? For me, it's, as what still has value currently. And look, in the songwriting, there's just been, all the streamers fought having to adhere to the MMA, Music Monetization Act. So now that those 5 years of royalties, they finally have to pay. So that's good news for songwriters. And there will be parity in it for songwriters. Ultimately, the streamers, the Spotifys, the YouTubes, the Apple Music will have to raise those songwriting royalties. But in the meantime, as a songwriter, what do I do to make a living? One thing you can do, you always write great songs. and you're going to do that, but control, have a piece of the master, you know, equip yourself with the ability to make a great recording. You know,
That's right.
if you're starting out, if you're already doing it as a songwriter, you need to be able to be functional or literate in starting in GarageBand, Logic, Ableton, Pro Tools, all of them, because then you have control of that master. And the people that can record themselves and go to that label, or more times than not, you guys know, you're writing with an independent artist, and he's going to put it out himself. If you have a piece of the master, then it's worth your while. Case in point, I have a friend's son. He's 24 years old. 4 years ago, he put out a 3-song EP. He purposely just kept it on the down low. An artist named Griffin, and he put out this EP and this one song just through just hustling a little bit on TikTok. Has probably over 500 million streams, and the royalties he gets direct to him through DistroKid on a monthly basis are nuts. He is living the life. He's had Aaron Bayshuk, heads of all the labels, call him up and say, "Hey man, we'd love to do a deal with you." And he's like, "I don't need it," you know? And so that's an example of knowing how to make your own demo, make that master quality recording. You can do it on this laptop. I'm doing this webinar right now. And so there's always, while one industry and one way of doing business is closing, another opens up. And Sam, you've always been really good about producing your stuff, you know, or at least having somebody in the room.
I mean, it was born out of necessity, right? You know, it started very early on. I realized I wasn't getting cuts with my demos because I was taking a traditionalist viewpoint in the demos. So they were very stark, and, you know, they weren't competitive. So I thought everyone could hear through a song, but not everyone can hear through a song. Not everyone is Lee Dene, you know, not everyone is Lynn Lenway. Like, these are people who have actually been in the business and done their time, and who I happen to be shouting out because I adore both of them. But what I would say is, you know, there are a lot of A&R who really need to hear it as a finished product ready for, you know, release. And so I just, you know, it really kicked in when I was working with Dave Katz. We would just spend days upon days sort of getting our demos right. And what happened magically is overnight, suddenly we started, you know, getting cuts where they would use the productions, and we thought they were demos, but suddenly they were productions, you know. And then things like, you know, Boys Like Girls, We the Kings, specifically We the Kings, you know, Check Yes Juliet, that was one of the first ones, Gym Class Heroes. These are just like these little indie records that became hits, but it was born out of the fact that we had put so much work into these productions that and that was just to sell the song, because we thought we couldn't get cuts. We really thought we couldn't get arrested. You know, hold on, Max. Hey, what's up, Max? Kevin, do you think labels are a dying breed? Kevin, do you think labels are a dying breed? Oh, you answered.
And I answered him and said, Max, they're making more money than ever. And it goes back to that thing I was mentioning about the money that is made on the master. And it just, you know, the master is that physical recording, right? The money that the streamers are paying. The streamers pay rates equal to what the labels used to make from the physical sale of albums or CDs or cassettes. Still a lot of money. The labels are making more money now than ever. There was this benchmark that they used to say that, you know, that would never happen. That was that's when Spotify and the other streaming platforms have over 100 million worldwide premium subscriptions, $10 a month. What now it's like $14 a month, whatever. The music industry would be where it was in the heyday of the 90s. I think they're at over 200 million now. And guess what? The labels have a big chunk of ownership in all the streamers.
Yes.
So the labels aren't going anywhere. They're making money hand over fist. The thing for as songwriters, what we have to do, we still have to keep fighting with groups like Sona, Songwriters of North America, that Sam and I are part of, the RIAA, David Israelite, all those people. We still have to. It's a battle to get parity for the songwriter. The songwriting royalties and the master use royalties used to be a 50-50 pile of pennies or money, right? That was split equally. Now it's, I don't know what it is. It's 98% goes to the master use and 2% goes to the songwriters. So we're in a battle where we're slowly making baby gains. But right now the labels are crushing.
And Max, to answer your question, I would go independent. I mean, I would go independent unless you can find if you're in a position where you actually have leverage, right, creatively, like you have created your art and there's a fan base and people are calling, and you get to that point where labels are calling. Unless you can find somebody who really believes in your artistry and really sees like a long-term 5 to 10 year plan with this, I would never, I wouldn't go near a major at this point, unless like your goal is sort of radio dominance. What I mean by that is, you know, when I started out, here's a sports reference, and I don't want to get too sporty with you, but you know, we always approached it, Brett Descend, who was managing me for a zillion years and one of the best friends, and Jonathan Daniel and Evan Tomfeld and all the Crush guys, like we all came up together. And one thing I would say is we believed that major labels back then were the starting pitcher on a record, right? Like we would deliver a record, we deliver a new act, and we would hope that they would do the heavy lifting, building up, helping us build this thing from day one. That doesn't exist anymore. That's such an archaic concept. They are the closing pitcher. They come in the ninth inning and can get it over the hump to enormity, to another level. But you have to pitch yourself over the first 8 innings. You have to do everything yourself. Is it strange to me that, you know, as somebody who grew up in the 80s where Mystique was king, right? Where Kevin, we grew up listening to the same stuff as we've waxed on for years. And like, you know, when we grew up listening to, you know, Echo and the Bunnymen and the Smiths and, you know, early hip hop and REM and all these bands, we had no access to their lives, right? We knew nothing about these people. They were these amorphous objects that like sort of, you know, you would read fanzines and maybe get a little window into, but we knew nothing. Now we know everything because unfortunately TikTok is is indentured servitude, where you have to constantly feed the algorithm 24 hours a day to stay in it. And that's really nuts. And that's crazy to me because suddenly artists have to be their own social media departments as well as everything else. And that just as a fan, as a guy who grew up as like, look, you know, I didn't want to be an artist. I wanted to write the songs. I nerded out over fandom of artistry. I'm an MTV kid. And I just love the notion that there was a wall between people. And I love the idea that I could create these movies in my head magically, like create who these people were. That's gone now. I know too much. It's too much access. So it's a different wiring. It doesn't really work for me, but for other people, I think it's perfect. I think some people completely understand this and use it as a mechanism, and it's great.
One thing, that's well said, Sam. One thing I'm seeing, Sam and I, and some great questions, guys, but right now, Sam and I are great examples of something that most people in the music industry have to do, and that is wear a lot of different hats.
I thought you were going to say we were dinosaurs, which was cool.
I know. Here's an example. So Sam started off, and I'll get some things wrong, but you know, wanting to write songs, you know, being an artist, getting signed, artist thing didn't work out. Start working with different artists. Write. What were the ringtones you were writing? German hip hop ringtones.
No, Kevin, you got to read the book again. I rapped with a German accent, and I made ringtones. Okay. For jam bands. I made jam band ringtones as a side hustle.
So okay, yeah. So all through Sam's career, it's always been about different irons in the fire.
It was called survival.
Survival. You know? Songs, and I'm doing ringtones. I'm signing bands, Gym Class Heroes, We the Kings, developing artists. You know, even while Sam was having the success of Hand Clap, a worldwide #1 with Fits in the Tantrums, he was also doing the music on for a television show. Was it Smash?
It was for Smash, Kevin. It was for Smash. The ill-fated Smash.
You have little groups of songwriters who you're publishing who were writing songs for different TV shows. And then to that point, you know, I started off with Better Than Ezra. When we got dropped in 2002 or something, because this old manager, a guy named Alan Kovac, a legendary manager of Blondie, Meatloaf, the Bee Gees, Motley Crue, said to me, Kevin, look at all the stuff I have. He was not a shy guy. He goes, you got one thing, you got better than Ezra. And he wanted me to write with his artist Meatloaf, because we were in the studio where Justin Timberlake was recording his first solo album. Ezra was doing one of our albums, Closer, and Meatloaf heard one of my songs in the studio he was in. So the point is, so I started writing with other artists. That career as a songwriter started feeding my career as an artist. I started a JV at BMG. I signed a guy named Jamie Moore. He had #1s with Morgan Wallen and Florida Georgia Line. I started a music festival, and now the artists who played the festival, I'm hanging out with them. They want to write with me. The point is, you look at Sam and look at me, unless you're that rare artist who, and God bless you, only gets to do that one thing. Most of us have to wear a lot of different hats. I have friends now like Mark Sibilia. If you go on Mark Sibilia's Instagram, he's a young artist, or Chaz Cardigan. I can name so many artists. Like you said, Sam, you got to be a multimedia kind of thing. Not only be a song.
Oh, you subscribe to my channel on Instagram and all this stuff. Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Be a producer, because if you're a songwriter, man, you better know how to produce your stuff. And there's no reason not to. It's so easy. It's a learning curve. You just do it every day. You start suck at first. But also you gotta you do your videos of your your live looping and all that kind of stuff. But then also don't be afraid, if you're an artist or and you're pushing your artist career, also work with other artists, produce, write for them, because you want to get to that brass ring of success in your career where you can pay your bills, right? Where you can just have a career. How do I get there? One of the things I like doing, I know, Sam, you like doing, is trying to show young artists, hey, there's a lot of different avenues to get to here. There's your artist career. Maybe here's your songwriting career. Maybe here's that artist who you went to Belmont with, or you went to NYU with, and you write a song with him and you produce that shitty demo. That's what opens the door that gets you as the artist thing. So don't be afraid to put more irons in the fire, I guess.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about home gear, right? Like, everybody has the ability now for the bar has been leveled in terms of home recording, right? We get these laptops. If you can get your hands on a laptop, you have software, you can make music. What's cool about that is you can be prolific, and it gives you the ability to actually experiment more than ever. I mean, when we started out, we had to go to big ass studios, and we had to book time, which we could barely afford, and we were on the clock for minute 1 to nail it, right? And nowadays you have time to experiment. My kid writes a little bit, and what's interesting is she's really musical and really interesting with what she's doing. But what I love is she's taking the time to experiment musically. I'll walk in and she's like dabbling in some strange voicing, and it's because they have that on their side, and that is lovely. I think that's phenomenal. Another thing I want to head back to is musicians. We were talking about well, both musicians on call, very important. I just want to say something because Pete Griffin is here, unless he ditched us. Pete Griffin heads Musicians on Call. To charity Kevin and I are both deeply involved in, and actually gave all the proceeds from my book to. And one thing I would say is, it is so important, to have advocacy, right? And in any way, shape, or form, right? So SONA is advocacy for songwriters. So if your aspiring songwriters are on here, please check out We Are SONA. I think that's the website. SONA, Songwriters of North America, helmed by Michelle Lewis. It's incredible because it's advocacy and it's a community, and you're part of something. And I think if you, more than ever, you really need to be part of a tribe in the music industry, because if you're an outlier and you're sort of, you haven't really gotten your bearings yet, this can be very overwhelming. And it's a wonderful thing to have a tribe. Also, I think it's so important just to, while you're on the come up and you're chasing this thing, and I still chase it every day of the week, the one thing I would say is you need to balance it mentally, giving back, because it numbs the pain of this, and the Recording Academy is incredible. The Recording Academy is evolving amazing. I really do think that they're doing great advocacy, great work. Get involved with your local chapter. It's like,
Yeah. What
it's
you said
imperative.
is really on point. A lot of young songwriters, young artists, they don't, BMI, Recording Academy, it doesn't sound sexy to you, but those groups are the people that can open the doors, like BMI or ASCAP or CSAC, the PROs, performing rights organizations.
Yeah, I thought I saw Barbara Kane on here earlier, but what I would say is, BMI is incredible, ASCAP's incredible. When I started out, I contacted my local ASCAP chapter in New York. Someone met with me. I didn't have anything going on, but somebody was willing to like just meet with me, and they set me up with a couple of sessions. I was 20 years old. I didn't know a single thing, but they found me moderately interesting, and they sent me out there. And I think that's part of the community. Things that I want to mention about music that are just so imperative. One, you know, this is the best community of humans of any possible vocation, you know, and I really do believe that, honestly. Like, obviously Kevin and I are very, very close friends, but we are part of a very large friend circle. And, people root for each other. I mean, I think Kevin and I are both full of snark, but at the end of the day, we do cheer for people, and you want to see people win. And I think that's the spirit of the music industry. I've always said, in the 80s at my high school, they had a smoking section designated right outside the cafeteria. And, you were told that smoking was awesome, just go outside and do it there. And what was so amazing, if you took a composite of my high school smoking section, that would be the music business. It's awesome. It's like it's just miscreants and free thinkers and rebels and nerds, and we all are sort of one big tribe, and that's why I love doing this. So just use all of these tools from the Recording Academy and Sona to yes, ASCAP, BMI, your PROs, to charitable organizations, work at musicians on call, meet people, do good things, and I think great stuff comes from it.
Get connected, stay connected, because those organizations that are your first entree as far as the industry as a young artist, they stay that your entire career. I'm in this business 30 plus years. Sam, you too. I go and do stuff for BMI all the time. I do stuff for Recording Academy. Sona, which is a new organization, is advocating for songwriters. So that's a great way to stay connected. Sam, I want to. One person asked, "What DAW do we use? DAWs or digital audio workstation?" They all have pluses. I would say the one that's the cheapest and the most intuitive is the best, and that's probably Ableton or Logic.
I think if I were going to guess at this point, I would say Logic, Ableton. I'm a Pro Tools guy, but I would say I feel like that is, I think Pro Tools for vocals I adore, because I love comping vocals, because I just like color schemes, and it comes with all these fun little colors in a row. So
always love.
Yeah. What are you drinking, by the way, Kevin? What is that?
Waterloo.
I like the Waterloo. I wouldn't say it's my favorite. I've become a Spindrift guy. You hip to the Spindrift?
Strike me as a Spindrift guy.
They say there is a higher quotient of natural fruits in Spindrift over any other.
You know what Spindrift is?
What?
You know what Spindrift is? Spindrift is the mist and the effervescence of air and water that comes off a crashing wave. The Spindrift.
Kevin, one thing I would tell you is, I don't want to tell you that, honestly, I've always considered you to be Spindrift.
Thank you. Thank you. So I want to talk about something everybody likes to talk about. We had this conversation a few weeks ago about, we were talking about AI, and I've done a few interviews with some different outlets about, as a songwriter, are you worried that AI is going to take place of the songwriter? Because you think about, a lot of people are saying, oh my gosh, what happens when a tech company, and it's going to happen, a tech company has an AI program that writes a hit melody, they get a real person to sing it, and it becomes a hit song, and a tech company in Silicon Valley owns 75% of a big hit song, and then suddenly songwriters will be marginalized more. And you had a good thought. Like, who's to say if and when that will ever happen? I have my doubts, but no, I think it will happen. But you had a great positive spin on AI and how you use it writing lyrics. And
Well, I mean, I think AI is incredible. I mean, um, you know, I'm not old enough to remember the advent when the studio drummer begins to get supplanted by the drum machine, right? Whatever, 80, 81, 82, and the sampler comes into play. But I will tell you, a very close friend of mine is a guy named Jim Musson. I remember he was like a jazz head. He was a session drummer in New York when he first got there. And then he saw the writing on the wall, so he began programming. And it's funny because if you go to his all music, it's like he's credited as like drummer on M2 and all these really badass records of the 80s and 90s, late 80s and 90s. And he was doing drum programming. He segued, he figured out how to take his skill and to adapt. AI to me is about adaptability. Am I scared of it? Sure, it's apocalyptic. The flip side is it's probably going to cure cancer on the other end. So we're either going to have world wars or cancer. Once again, everything has layers. So I'm using it. I use it for a bunch of things. I'll tell you one thing I'm using it for. It is amazing for social media posts because I'm very awkward with social media posting, Kevin. So I would spend tons of time sort of just trying to get verbiage right on posts. I put so much heart into these posts that nobody cares about what I say anyway. But I'd write these incredible soliloquies of nothingness. And what happened was I decided, for AI, I just decided to start writing these little prompts of posts, and it's incredible. They come back in 6 seconds. I edit, and it's out, and I've gotten that time back in my life. AI is about getting time back in your life. For songwriting, look, to use AI for an entire lyric, that's not going to work at this point, just because it's the verbiage is extremely flowery, and it feels like a solid B to me. But it is actually great to jolt the writing process. Many times I'll write a verse, a pre, and a chorus, and I say, "Can you please write a second verse for what I did?" And if none of it is usable, what it is doing, it is jolting my brain. Sometimes there's a word, and it gets me back on track, and that's great. And that is a skill, AI music, it's coming. You and I both know like the tracks are going to be coming. I know there's a bunch now, but I think within the next 6 months, I think the AI, instrumentals, you'll be able to dial up and say, "Hey man, I want something that sounds like Steely Dan meets Jay-Z." And something will land in front of you, and it's probably going to sound like a B to a B minus. But I'd like to believe that you continue to alter the prompt and tweak it and get it to a place. You might create something cool. You're still using your creative muscle,
No, if for two things, like what Sam told me he does is like he'll tell it, "Hey, write a second verse to this song," and you'll get, and it will render an idea, the second verse, and it sounds like a bad high school poetry, but there'll be one word in it, and you're like, "Oh, that's actually a pretty dope word. Let me refine, make it quirky quirky indie second verse." And then you refine it more. And like Sam said, it jolts your creativity, and suddenly some words pop out, and then you're off to the races. And I'm gonna do it. Neither one of us have done it yet, Sam. I'll go first. Like I said in my book.
Yeah, well played. By the way, I just want to say hi to Dan Friedman, the world's biggest Better Than Ezra fan. He doesn't, I'm not going to judge him. I like his choices, but it's a big cameo. Kevin, give him a shout out. Say what's up, Dan Friedman.
Dan Friedman, you're the best.
Right.
And English Dave, one thing I talk about in the book that it can be writing songs, or it can be anything you do in business, is changing your attitude. And it's a friend of mine is a songwriter. He is a pilot, and attitude in aviation is altitude is like your height from the ground, right? But attitude is your orientation to the ground, specifically when you're landing a plane. What's your angle of approach? What is your attitude? Is your nose down? So what is your angle of approach when you're trying to write a song, to come up with a business plan? Most people, Sam and I, have a way we usually approach it. For me, you Sam, you're usually lyric, and then you'll just have some kind of vibe you somehow you get across. For me, I'll come up with the guitar. I'll start playing something on guitar, and that's how I write a song. But a lot of times that attitude, that approach isn't working. So how do I change my angle of approach? Like you said, it could be AI. Like, God damn it, we can't write the song. Let's just throw some ideas into AI. Oh, wow, that lyric is pretty good. Or if it's not AI, it's like, you know what?
Well, Kevin, remember like 10, sorry, but remember like 15 years ago, you know, if it seemed apocalyptic that Master Writer was launched. Remember Master Writer? You would walk into every session and, look, I'm one of these people who takes tremendous pride in the fact that I can summon up like 100 rhymes on the spot, right? I'm pretty verbal and I've never really had to rely on a rhyming dictionary. So Master Writer comes along and I'm walking into rooms and suddenly people are like, rhymes for sleigh, hey, hey. And, part of me is like horrified, but the flip side is it kept the session moving faster and art was then created. So look, these are all tools, man, like sampling. I'm probably create music for a living because I fell in love with sampling before anything else. Yes, I was a student of the Brill Building and all the eras of pop music, and I'm this nerdy guy who loved, just nerded out on songwriters. I tell you though, when I got my hands on a sampler and I was messing around with an SP1200 and I was chopping up old records and then writing songs over them, it was the most magical thing I ever experienced. I would spend hours and hours at flea markets just buying.
Got a serious win coming up, Sam, right now.
You know what? Tell Matt Hammer. You know what I mean? Like, don't blame me. Blame the weather guy. I'm cold. I'm doing this, and my guns are out. It's like very cold here, but it's a lot of man here.
Let's answer some questions here. So Master Writer, it was and is a subscription rhyming program that kind of took Rhyme Brain and Rhyme Zone to the next level. What you could do is you could ask for a rhyme for a word and then say, give me a pop culture reference rhyme. So a lot of songs were written using lyrics were written using Master Writer. I wrote a few that were definitely some lines were finished.
What's up, Josh Medlock? Great dude, great guy, Josh Medlock.
But
Jerry Lembo, industry legend. Right.
What do you? So I kind of stand by what I've always said, that with every change, with every it's Armageddon, it's end of days in music industry. It's really just about, okay, how do I use this new tool? Okay, this door, the way I used to do it is closing, or that door is barely open. I got to find a new way,
Yeah, I mean, and you also, at our age, you never want to be the dinosaur in the room, right? And what I mean by that is, I did a panel a couple of years ago, and I was with a couple of really great, famous sort of writers of a certain thing, and we were all sitting on stage, and the two people I was on stage with were going crazy with vitriol about the state of music and said, oh, songs suck today. There's no good music. All the good music was in the 70s and 80s and blah, blah. Look, my personal tastes, I enjoy music from the 70s and 80s and hip hop from the 90s or whatever. I sure, because that's music that was formative to my upbringing. The flip side is there's amazing music being made today. There's incredible music being made everywhere. And, the bar is open now, which is incredible. So people who might not have had access to recording studios and all these things can now create art. It's awesome.
What is something that what's the most recent song artist you've heard, a new artist that you really dig?
I mean, I gotta say, there's a lot of things that I dig. I dig this kid, Isaac Dunbar. I think he's fantastic. He's on RCA. He's great. I love what he does. I would say Quarters or Change on Elektra Records. It's a very cool band.
Wait, all these artists that have new singles coming out that you co-wrote, Sam?
No. But boy, that would be convenient. And there's Oliver Anthony, right? I know you're a big Oliver Anthony fan, Kevin.
Love Oliver.
Rich Men of Richmond. No, Fasten. By the way, can we talk about that for 1 second? Rich Man of Richmond. You didn't realize this is the #1 song in America. I'm sure we are all fascinated by this.
session just now with this guy named Kenny Sharp. He's an artist. They're actually probably finishing the song we started at 11 a.m. I took a little break to do this. So a song is being. I'm actually getting a song credit right now, Sam. I'm multitasking, but we were talking.
Do you think that song is going to land because you're on this chat? Do you feel like this gives you a better chance because you've created some sort of aura of mystique and power?
Some type of something elixir has been made. But what do you think of the Richmond song? I've only heard it one time. It's kind of I don't know, man. You know,
I'm going to give you my real take on it because I've been thinking about this, Kevin. I'm going to give you a hot take. You know, what I find so fascinating about this and the Aldine video, etc., is look, the Oliver Anthony guy can actually sing. He's got a great voice. Like I I I heard the song. I read all the press. Through the first verse, I thought, wow, this guy is an incredible singer, and it's so throaty and passionate what he's doing, and I totally back it. Second verse tends to feel kind of like the QAnon verse, so it just feels like it's almost like he didn't follow ChatGPT. If he had just stayed in ChatGPT and stayed, they might have kept him on the first verse, meaning because I felt like the first verse was really really, I mean, it's very poignant what he was saying. I thought he had some, he was speaking from the heart. It was great. Then it takes weird turns and trafficking and stuff like that, which really has nothing to do with what the first verse said, but maybe that's how he wanted it to evolve. I would tell you this, what I find so fascinating about this and is that, and if someone please chime in, because there are older writers than me on this who can provide more insight. The one thing I would say is, protest music, which dates before us, obviously, and throughout our lifetime always felt very liberal. And that was part of the American, process was, protest and rage against the machine, stuff like that. And it's fascinating that the protest songs are coming from the conservative side now, and that they're reacting big. And they're, you're talking about back-to-back number ones for these songs. It's fascinating, and it just tells you we're in a crazy time.
I do, and truth be told, full disclosure, I've heard the song one time and I was listening more to the melody. I wasn't listening to the controversial lyrics and what's that saying. I will say just style. There's something right now, a movement with like Tyler Childers, Zach Bryan, this guy. People are wanting to hear that
raw,
all plaintive, Hank Williams Sr. voice that's just, it's speaking to people. And look, at Pilgrimage Festival, the festival I helped start September 23rd and 4th. We've got Zach Bryan. The Sunday that Zach Bryan is on is almost sold out. The Saturday, which I think is a better total lineup with the Lumineers, Black Crowes, James Bay, is selling about, is selling a third less. People love what's happening right now. And I think that guy's song is an example of that. I can't comment on the lyrics or how QAnon or crazy it is. It wouldn't surprise me. It seems like more of a curiosity right now,
it's all fascinating, but it's indicative of 2023, where just things that are happening. This kid does not have a deal. He has the number one song in America. It is a very new time.
And he will make, let's just talk nuts and bolts. He will, if he did it through DistroKid or TuneCore, he'll make more money with what he's done and how many streams than he ever will from a label.
Oh, don't take the deal. Of course not.
Yeah, yeah. As an agent, if he wants to tour, and maybe a manager to help guide his career or not, so that's the positive thing. There's so much. We started this conversation saying that the gatekeepers, like Sam, you said it, the gatekeepers are gone. You can go direct to your people and see if you have a visceral reaction with a song. And this guy is an example of that. My wife's son, Jagger, is an example of that. So that's a greater thing happening right now in 2023 than it's ever happened.
I think it's phenomenal. Look, and I'm happy for this kid because honestly, he's speaking about what he believes in. It's not offensive. It's like, it's just, he's passionate about his cause. It might not completely align to some of my things, but God bless him. At least he did it outside of traditional means. That kid never gets a deal in a million years outside of it because the business has changed so much. So,
and somebody said, how do you score a co-write with an industry legend, or how do you just kind of reach out to that person you want to get in touch with? And half the battle is just reaching out. I get hit on Instagram, DM'd all the time, and a lot of times
I'm in his DMs all the time. I slide into his DMs all the time.
But I'll get hit by young writers. And look, I got contacted by a young writer producer, and I listened to it and I was like, holy crap, this is really good. And I signed her to it. I put together a joint venture publishing company just to sign her, an artist named Nicole Alexis. She's a songwriter, producer.
It's awesome.
But by the same token, there's artists that I dig, young artists. Like, I won't get the right if I go through management and label, I just direct message them. And a lot of times they go, dude, I go, man, I love what you're doing. It's awesome. If they're a national artist, I'm like, hey man, if you ever want to go grab coffee, let me know. And sometimes we'll go grab coffee and we hit it off. We write. So then you never get the answer you want unless you ask the question, as a friend said. So again, just like you have the immediacy to write your song on this laptop I'm talking on and get it to people and have a hit, you can also use a laptop just to reach out to a Sam Hollander.
What's funny, because I slide into people's DMs, I usually get, I've never heard of you. So, it's good. So it levels the playing field. Yeah. I got to tell you, it's tenacity is king. There's a lot of tenacious people on this chat, you just got to find the right fit. I mean, we all kissed a ton of toads in this business until we found collaborators that we were in sync with, and for somebody like me at this point, I'm more internal with my writing. I actually prefer writing on my own most of the time, because I love the idea of starting ideas and then sending them to artists who I really dig to jump on and maybe add on to, because that's where my comfort level is probably strongest right now. So I do less sessions in a traditional sense, but it changes yearly. That might be where I'm at right now, but it's constantly evolving. And the biggest thing is tenacity. It's like both of our books really kiss on the notion, how imperative it is to be a street fighter in this, because, it's competitive. So you have to have the wiring that it's the one thing you really want to do. It's the one thing. And if you wake up, and I say this all the time, and I say this ad nauseum, and I really mean it. If you wake up one morning and say, you know what, by the way, David Boxenbaum is in the house. Box, I love you. Great guy, great legend. If you wake up one morning and you say, you know what, I really dig music. Music is incredible. But you know what? I'm really getting into like organic farming, beet farming, like, Dwight on The Office, right? Like I love beets. I want to sell my stuff at Whole Foods eventually. I want to have a line. I want to do this, whatever. Get into that, because honestly, music is so crazy that it takes, such singular focus. And what Tom and Kevin, what we're all talking about is, and you spend your whole time even side hustling within the music industry, right? Like I've owned publishing companies and I've done this and that, constantly just to stay in it, because it's the only thing that speaks to me. But the day that comes where I'm considerably moved by something else to the same extent, I'm going to make that pivot, because that's how music is a calling. It's like, to me, it's everything. And if someday it might not be, and if it's not, I'll just do something else.
I love it. God, well said. I think we're getting close to the end. I think we're going to go to 55. Thank you for everybody who has joined us. Your questions and your comments have been really thoughtful and on point. Let's see. We need to hear lyrics on the melody. It doesn't always have to be heavily produced. Yeah, you're right. It's the song that comes through. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you to Tom Truitt for having Sam and I. I hope you've gleaned some knowledge and some wisdom has been dropped.
I knew we would all benefit from today, but I got one quick question for both of you that I put in the chat that you ignored, and that is, who do you guys view as your mentors? Do you have a singular mentor that you want to call out?
Sam, you go.
Two, Carole King, Paul Williams. And honestly, maybe Nile Rodgers. All people who took shots with me very early on in my career when I had nothing going on and gave me opportunities and maybe believed in my craft and honestly gave me lessons that were infinitely more powerful than what I ever learned in standard education. So that'd be my three.
Three legends. All right, Kevin, you get three.
I gotta say, the person who told me to branch out was Alan Kovac. He's a legend in the business. He also ended up signing my band to a label deal a few years later, and that went belly up, and he never paid any of his mechanical royalties. So, but he did, get me, diversify. So I gotta hand it to him. He has no idea. And then just also maybe to Tom Petty, that we never met, and he was the best at realizing that keeping something simple, that you can say so much with less words and just simple melodies and simple lyrics, doing judicious editing, the power of that economy of words is really important as a songwriter. And I try to always, because the problem you get as a songwriter is you go on, you go like, I don't want to repeat myself. I want to get more complex and impress my friends. And then you're like, wait a second. The song everybody remembers me about is Wah-ah, it was good. Don't forget, simple has power, and great and simple are not mutually exclusive.
I would say Dave Katz, when I collaborated with Dave Katz and we had a lot of success together, one thing I really learned from Dave was space. Creating space, creating tension in my writing. And I was always wordy, and I always felt like I overwrote. And he was the one who edited me, and that it changed my life. So.
Well, this has been awesome. One more plug for the Pilgrimage Music Festival.
Yes,
gentlemen.
Yes,
it's that festival outpunches its weight class year in and year out. The talent that you guys bring in there, Kevin, kudos. Once again, it's amazing.
And he created it on his own. Like, this crazy guy came up with this idea where you're jogging through the park. Is that what you're doing?
I was taking a jog and I found myself out there, and I was like, I'm going to do a music festival, and ran home, and God, somehow we're still here 9 years later.
Doesn't Kevin Griffin look like somebody who jogs? Doesn't he really feel like that,
I'm doing a half marathon. You're doing it with me. January 16th. It's Louisiana half marathon, Sam. Get your shit. I got fitted at Fleet Feet yesterday. Come on, man.
No one needs to see me in any sort of sweating capacity whatsoever. I know what I look like. It's tough enough on a daily basis as it is.
Do you own a pair of shorts? Have I seen you in shorts?
Kevin looks like Matthew McConaughey. You see me in my shorts with my little Campbell soup legs? It's not a great look, man.
All right. Well, that's
I have an elongated torso. It's a problem. It's very lengthy. I have a lot of torso. So just keep that in mind.
Most of the great songwriters have an elongated
big and
torso.
Tall, Yes, Kevin does have rock star hair. Fuck him.
Hey, Sam, I've heard that all great songwriters have that elongated torso. So you were blessed. Well, listen, folks, it is time to sign off. Thank you for the music, both of you. I promised the audience they would leave more inspired, and I think they are. You all has proven what I also said at my the statement at the beginning, that is, nice guys do finish first. So keep doing what you're doing. Love you both.
Love you, bud.
Thank you
so much, guys. And we're both on Instagram, and occasionally understand how to work it and answer messages and stuff. So please reach out, whatever. Lots of love. And Matt Hammer, News 12. I think he's got a Twitter. Tell him.
Bye, Max Mill. See you guys.
Later.
Later.